Good evening, councillors, and welcome to another ordinary meeting for Monday, 24th of April 2023. Item 1, meeting opening. Item 1.1, attendance. Are there any apologies, Mr Kearsley?
Thank you, Mayor. At the moment we have Councillor Sophie Tan as an apology.
Okay, thank you, Mr Kearsley. Item 1.2, acknowledgement of traditional owners of the land. Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pays our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, while also recognising their deep and continuing connections to climate, culture and country. We also pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders and acknowledge their journey. Item 1.3, offering of prayer, reflection or affirmation. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer, reflection or affirmation this evening will be offered by Mr Bikramajit Singh from the Sikh community, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. Can I ask all to please stand?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. The scripture I'm going to read is from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the Holy Scripture of the Sikh, written by the 5th Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji. The gist of it is, no one is my enemy and no one is a stranger. I get along with everyone. Na ko beri, nahi begana, sagal sang hum ko baniyai. Na ko beri, नाही बेगाना बिसर गई सब तात पराई जब ते साध संगत मोहे पाई जो प्रभ कीनो सो पल मानियो एह सुमत साधु ते पाई सब में रव रहया प्रभ एकै पेक पेक नानक बिगसाई ना को बैरी नाही बेगाना सगल सांग हम को बनियाई सगल सांग हम को बनियाई वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह थैंक यू
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, moved by...
Happy to move that, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Milkovich, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Keasley, are there any disclosures of interest tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. We have three tonight. The first one is from Councillor Angelong with regards to item 4.1.1 Part B, the 2023-2024 proposed capital works program, with regards to a direct material conflict of interest on a non-pecuniary nature, as Councillor Long is the President of the Dandenong North Senior Citizens Club, which uses the Dandenong North Senior Citizens Hall. The second one is from Councillor Mametti with regards to item 4.1.1 Part B, again 23-24 proposed capital works program on tonight's agenda. It's a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature, in that Councillor Mametti is a director of a company that operates a stall at the Dandenong Market. And finally tonight, Councillor Lim with regards to item 5.1, the notice of motion 27 rescission, a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature, in that Mrs. Councillor Lim is the owner of a shop in Balmoral Avenue, Springvale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Item 2, Officers' Reports, Part 1. Item 2.1, Documents for Sealing.
Happy to move that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, seconded by Councillor Mametti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.2, Documents for Tabling. 2.2.1, Petitions and Joint Letters. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Long. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.3, Statutory Planning Applications. 2.3.1, Planning Delegated Decisions issued March 2023.
Happy to move that, Madam
Second
Moved by
that.
Councillor Mametti, seconded by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.3.2, Planning Decisions issued by Planning Minister's Delegate, March 2023. Moved by Councillor Long, seconded by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.3.3, Town Planning Application number 845 Taylors Road, Dandenong South, Planning Application number PENQ 22/0299. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Mametti. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the relevant officer to confirm that this report on Taylors Road, which was going to be an energy generation facility but the permit was subsequently withdrawn, is considering whether the owner can still change the plan for how the land can be used, and if that is correct and the council is not supporting that amendment?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I can confirm that Council's recommendation is to not support the development plan and to remove the energy generation facility out of the reference to it and only have it for the use of the land for industry, which is in accordance with industrial zoning of the land.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Are there any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 3, question time public. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a number of questions tonight. The first one is from Matthew Cohen of Noble Park, who has asked for his question to be read out. On Sunday, the 2nd of April 2023, in the evening, I heard very loud music playing. It came from the direction of one of our neighbours, which was unusual as they never had parties, and this sounded like a large party. I have learned subsequently that the music was coming from a festival at Greaves Reserve, Dandenong, which is over 1 kilometre away. The Sri Lankan New Year Festival is run every year, yet we have never heard it. Question 1, what decibel limit was allowed in their permit conditions? Question 2, what time limits were allowed for an outdoor music concert in their permit conditions? And question 3, did they breach those conditions? Mr Stewart, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Cohen, for your question. I'm going to answer them all in one answer. In order to gain event permits, the Festivals and Events team supports event organisers to gather information from other departments on relevant regulations to ensure that they will be able to follow these regulations. This is discussed in detail leading up to the event, including compliance with EPA regulations for noise, and based on these discussions and information provided, we will either approve or refuse a permit request. For many large events like this, we notify the event organiser that they must inform the community well in advance of the event via print and social media to provide such information as taking care of your animals when fireworks are being displayed and the hours the event will be held. This is to set community expectations that there will be some noise and disruption from the important cultural events. In previous years, the event was held at Greaves Reserve on Oval 2, in which the stage did not face the Noble Park residential areas, but instead faced the Dandenong South direction. This year, due to works being undertaken on Oval 2, the event was held on Oval 4 that resulted in the stage facing Yarraman / the Noble Park area. This might have contributed to the music noise from the event travelling greater distances than usual. We can also confirm that other than the complaints from yourself and Ms Gay Guess, our local laws and events team have not received any other complaints regarding the Sri Lankan New Year's event, nor were there any breaches of the hours of operation. As a person with high engagement and involvement in the community, you would know that we are the most culturally diverse council in Australia, and as such, we ask for your understanding in embracing all cultures and accepting their many different expressions of celebration and remembrance of their significant community events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor. The second question is from Peter Brown of Noble Park, who has again asked that I read his question out. As a ratepayer, if property I own in Greater Dandenong City Council is rezoned to a zoning which attracts a higher rate than I am currently paying, does the higher rate become due and payable from the time when Council approves the rezoning or another date, and if so, what date? And would back rates be payable? Ms Hanson, please.
Thank you. Ms Hanson, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. If a property is rezoned, once the rezoning is completed, council organises a revaluation at the time the property changes use, or in this case rezoned. Rates would then be recalculated and become due and payable at that point.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you. Second question from Peter Brown of Noble Park. Should the whole area owned by the Melbourne Racing Club and operating as the Sandown Racecourse be rezoned from its current special use zone to a combination of residential 1 and 2 and commercial and or any other upgraded rezoning? When are the higher rezoned rates due and payable to council? And secondly, should the rezoning be approved as indicated above, what would be the estimated amount of annual rates due and payable by council? We have two people answering. First one, Ms Hanson. Second one, Mr Stewart. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Hanson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just something to highlight. Before consideration can be given to what the estimated potential rates might be, the amendment will need to be authorised to commence, be processed and then ultimately approved by the Minister for planning. It is likely to be several years before that amendment process is completed. In terms of rates, depending on when the rezoning process finishes, Council organises a revaluation at the time the area changes, in this case rezoned. The calculation of rates will be determined at that time and become due and payable at that point.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Mr Stewart, did you have anything else to add? No. Thank you. Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another question from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. Will the council be promoting the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia with a flag raising to the community this year, and if so, by what means? Ms Gillies, please, her first question of council.
Thank you, Ms Gillies.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Mr Kerwin, for your question. In support of the LGBTIQ+ communities, Council will be raising the Pride flag on Wednesday the 17th of May to commemorate International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia, known as Ida Hobbit. The Drum Theatre will also be illuminated in Pride colours as a sign of Council's ongoing commitment to equality and LGBTIQ+ rights. Council will promote the flag raising and illumination of the Drum Theatre via its social media channels, as well as with an article featured in the May edition of City Magazine.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park with regards to Fotheringham Reserve in Dandenong. What is the latest on the timeframes for completion of works on the Billabong at Fotheringham Reserve in Dandenong West? When are the new boardwalks to be expected to be installed? Mr Van Boxtel, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Matthew, for your question. Ecological works at the Billabong are now complete and the preliminary design for the boardwalk has been undertaken. The designers are in the process of finalising geotechnical reports and Melbourne Water approval, which is taking a little longer than expected. The project is expected to be completed by the end of July 2023, weather permitting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Elizabeth Grasso of Keysborough with regards to the Sandown Park Master Plan Planning Scheme Amendment. Question 1, what month this year is the Sandown Park Master Plan Planning Scheme Amendment expected to go out for exhibition? Second question is, what environmental assessments of the biodiversity value of the site will be made publicly available as part of the exhibition? And question 3, can you provide details of the number of trees, A, to be cut down as part of the development, B, to be retained, and C, will the species of A and B be publicly available as part of the exhibition? Mr Stewart, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms Grasso, for your questions. Question 1, Council has received the planning scheme amendment for the Sandown Racecourse redevelopment, and this has been submitted to the Minister for Planning for assessment. Following the outcome of this assessment, the amendment will be placed on exhibition with the relevant background documents. Unfortunately, we are unable to estimate when this will actually be put on exhibition, but we do advise you to keep an eye on Council's website. It will be exhibited on the website. And in regards to questions 2 and 3, I'll have to take those on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. With regards to the Dandenong Community Hub, question 1, on what date will the co-design sessions between residents and the architect begin? And question 2, what is the meaning of the resolution, Council participates in the State Government of Victoria's 4-year-old kindergarten pre-prep initiative to determine future years' requirements within the City of Greater Dandenong. Given that it was decided at the Council meeting over 18 months ago on the 13th of September 2021 that kindergarten would be in the scope for the hub. If Mr Van Boxtel could answer question 1 and Ms Gillies to question 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, subject to the item being presented in tonight's budget being approved by Council in late June for the funding of the design process, we expect to be able to then appoint a lead architect to undertake the detailed design for that facility, and once that has occurred, a timeframe for further meetings will be known and shared with the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. And Ms Gillies, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Ms Mastrogiovanni, for your question. In June 2022, the State Government of Victoria announced that all children would be able to access 15 additional hours of 4-year-old kindergarten, increasing the total contact hours to 30 hours per child per week. This initiative is referred to as pre-prep. Council officers are now working with State Government to determine the kindergarten places estimated to be required in City of Central Dandenong to provide for pre-prep. This information will be critical in determining the total licensed kindergarten places provided in the hub and for State Government grant applications to aid in funding construction.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Mayor. A further question from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni from Dandenong. When first planned the touchscreens at the Dandenong Civic Centre and the Springvale Community Hub, they were meant to have information about former councillors, not just current councillors. Can this information please be added? Ms Sprague, thank you.
Thank you. Ms Sprague, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the touchscreens here at the Dandenong Civic Centre and the Springvale Community Hub feature the Greater Dandenong Community Honour Roll. This acknowledges people who have made a lasting contribution to serving the Greater Dandenong community, including the city's living treasures, Australia Day Award recipients and the current councillor representatives. Several individuals featured on the honour roll are former councillors. However, yes, we certainly can add all former councillors to that content over time.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Tina Congus of Dandenong with regards to the Little India redevelopment. I understand from the Greater Dandenong Council website that the Capital Alliance Master Plan was submitted to the Department of Transport and Planning in January 2023. Can the Council please tell residents if anything at all was changed regarding the Little India redevelopment as part of the Master Plan consultation last year, and if so, what was it? Dandenong residents are still in the dark. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Tina, for your question. The Department of Transport and Planning has informally referred the Master Plan submission to Council as an authority that has an interest in this site. Officers are currently reviewing the material received. Council will contact Development Victoria as the lead agency for this project, seeking the availability of a public report that covers the community engagement phase of the Capital Alliance Master Plan process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Mr Keasley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Gay Guest of Keysborough with regards to soft plastic and hard rubbish collection. Question 1, I'll read out. City of Kingston have introduced 5 times 240 litre bins at 5 Strategic Council facilities for residents to deposit soft plastic in. No ID required like Monash Transfer Station. Is it possible for Greater Dandenong City Council to do exactly the same after signing a contract with APR? That's the question. I'll now read out some further statements. As only 4% of the population use the Home Cycle program at a cost of $10,000, could this program morph into a soft plastics recycling program? The feedback on the Home Cycle program is that people don't want to put out quality items into a yellow bin that has been filled daily with loose household recyclable items leaking liquid into their bins. Today at the Keysborough South Shopping Centre, there were heavy plastic bags sticking out of a drainage system. More soft plastic is visible on our roads and reserves. We need to try and collect these items from recycling rather than from getting them in our vulnerable waterways and oceans. The question 2, City of Kingston are now offering 2 hard waste pickups a year and Glen Ira 3 pickups a year. Although the $2.2 million budget for our 1 pickup in the City of Greater Dandenong multiplies accordingly, if there were more pickups in CGD, this would not help reduce the $2.9 million deficit picking up dumped waste. Is it worth a trial to see if more pickups combat this environmental issue? Mr Van Boxtel, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Gay, for your question. In respect to question 1, over the past few weeks, council officers have had a number of preliminary discussions with APR in relation to rolling out soft plastic recycling here in Greater Dandenong. Staff have visited a number of facilities at both Kingston and Monash to gauge how these councils have set up this service and how potentially Greater Dandenong would look to do something similar. Council officers are currently investigating a number of facilities throughout the municipality where this service could be rolled out. Council's waste and cleansing team will also look to roll out soft plastic recycling at a number of council events moving forward, including an additional 2 reuse and recycling drop-off days per annum. I'll now respond to question 2. Whilst we understand that other councils are offering additional services for hard waste collection, Greater Dandenong have opted not to increase the number of collections per annum for this service. In the 21-22 financial year, the uptake of this service was only 33.7% of all households, indicating that this service, at its current levels, is underutilised. Council staff have also undertaken investigations into the relationship between hard waste and dump rubbish, and there appears to be very little correlation between the two. In most instances, the dump rubbish that is collected is materials that are not accepted in the hard waste collection stream. Whilst we are not currently considering expanding our hard waste service, we have increased the number of highly popular reuse and recycle drop-off days from 2 to 4 per annum. This will provide residents with further opportunities to bring unwanted goods to any of these events to be recycled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor. I now have 3 questions from Maria Sampi, who had indicated that she would be present to verbally ask the questions. However, in looking out, I can't see that she is, so I'll read them on her behalf. So the first question from Maria Sampi of Dandenong relates to Dandenong Market removal of plastic bags. With the removal of plastic bags taking place, what will the market be using for their customers to use when they buy fruit? Will paper bags be introduced? And how will people freeze meat and vegetables in future when you cannot use freezer bags? Mr Stewart, please.
Thank you. Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms Sampi, for your questions. I'm going to have to take them on notice and reply to them in due course.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mayor. The second question is with regards to communication with managers. I rang council and wanted to speak with the manager of building and was put through to the building department. I advised a staff member that I did not know how to spell his surname correctly and could she give me his email address so I could send an email. She told me to send an email to the building department. I once again repeated that I wanted to speak with the building manager and then she hung up on me. Why is it that you cannot speak with the managers and ask them a question and they do not return calls if you leave a message for them to call you back? I'll respond to this particular question, Mayor. Thank you for your question. It is disappointing to hear of that particular experience and it is not what is expected from this organisation. I will refer the matter to Jodie Bosman and Jamie Thorley to respond, but also for Mr Thorley to contact you directly in the coming days. The final question from Maria Sampi of Dandenong relates to the Sports Pavilion at Barry Powell Reserve. When is the construction of the Sports Pavilion at Barry Powell Reserve going to commence? As money was allocated 4 years ago, as I am seeing councillors approve building of other future sports pavilions, even though the previous ones have not yet been commenced. Mr Van Boxtel, thank you.
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Maria, for your question. A concept design informed by community consultation for the pavilion at Barry Powell Reserve is currently being finalised. $350,000 is allocated in the current budget for detailed design, which will include the preparation of a cost plan. The timing for construction will be the subject of future council budget and external grant considerations. Other committed pavilions that have completed all design processes and receive funding for their constructions are the ones that are underway presently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Item 4, Officers' Reports Part 2. Item 4.1, Finance and Budget. 4.1.1, 2023 to 24 Proposed Capital Works Program. Just remind Councillor Long and Councillor Mehmeti that this item is broken into two parts. Recommendation A will be for all, and recommendation B is where I believe conflict of interests. So we'll move A first. So part A of the recommendation is the proposed 2023 to 24 Capital Works Program for inclusion in the proposed 2023 to 24 budget, with the exception of Projects 8, which is the Dandenong Market multi-storey car park and lift building, install protective bollards, and 16 Dandenong North Senior Citizens automated doors. So moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this particular item, recommendation A, carried. Now moving on to
Madam
Part
Mayor,
B.
if I can just have a few minutes.
Yes.
Yes, this is the going forward. This proposed budget going forward is so we've got some really good items listed on there. We've got $11 million for the Keysborough Community Hub, which the people in Keysborough South have been waiting for probably over a decade. I see that we'll start having some action at the Dandenong Wellbeing Centre. There's $5.5 million there. And I also see $3.14 million for fleet renewal program. I'll ask that question in private, but that's something. Is that an annual budget that we use, Mr. Keasley?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Yes, we normally have a substantial amount in our annual fleet, but compared to this financial year, where we chose not to have any dollars, we are actually allocating a substantial amount to next year's fleet management.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Keasley.
I also see $1.76 million there for the design for the community hub in Dandenong. And so all in all, I think it's a budget that's going to be a fiscal budget, but I think this council is in good stead to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to also acknowledge that in tough times, this is an ambitious program and it's an important program. Probably none so important as the Keysborough Hub. A little bit of bias there, but I congratulate the council and the councillors for being able to have such an important and ambitious program. And I think it's really important at this time that these works are undertaken. So, just want to compliment everyone on that.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Are there any further comments regarding this item? No? We might then move on to Part B, or Recommendation B of this item. So, Councillor Long.
In accordance with Section 130 and 131 of the Local Government Act 2020, I declare that I have a conflict of interest in the following matter. Item number 4.1.1, Part B, 2023-24 Proposed Capital Works Program. Further, I declare in accordance to section 127 to 129 of the Local Government Act 2020 that the type of interest that has given rise to the conflict is a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature. Further, I declare the nature of my interest is described as follows. I'm the President of the North Dandenong Senior Citizen Club, which uses the North Dandenong Senior Citizen Hall.
Thank you, Councillor Long. And Councillor Mehmeti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I declare in accordance with section 127 to 129 of the Local Government Act 2020 that I have a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary. Furthermore, I declare that the nature of my interest is described as follows. I'm a director of a company that operates a stall at the Dandenong Market.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. We'll wait until Councillor Mehmeti and Councillor Long leave the chambers. So recommendation B, that Council approves the capital works included in projects 8, Dandenong Market, multi-storey car park and lift building, install protective bollards, and 16, Dandenong North Senior Citizens automated doors. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. And can we please call both Councillor Mehmeti and Councillor Long back into the chambers? Item 4.1.2, proposed 2023 to 24 budget, moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor O'Reilly. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a question to the relevant officer. I think it's Acting Director of Planning. On the agenda, it's page 235 or thereabouts, but there's been some discussion about the trader worker permit yearly fee at number 8 Balmoral Car Park, and in this draft budget it's currently showing as going up by 400% or almost 400%. And my understanding was that there was going to be some consideration and discussion around this that hasn't been forthcoming. Mayor, so can I just, as a question, ask what the rationale is by putting this permit up by 400%, and also just say that, put it on notice that I do intend that this get discussed further, given that these permits in particular were designed to move parking off the on-street car parking spaces in Springvale Activity Centre, and that a substantial, almost 400% increase in this particular fee would possibly reduce the use of these permits right down, which would then contribute to increased issues with congestion in the Springvale Activity Centre. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. I might put the question to the Acting CEO, Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Councillor. Unfortunately, the responsible director for that area, Mr Bosman, is not available tonight, and understand it would be some undue pressure putting on Mr Stewart to answer that, so I'm happy to take that. With regards to the reasons behind the increase, one of them is simply to provide some equilibrium and some balance between the prices being charged at Dandenong and then Springvale. But secondly, the current trader costs at Springvale have essentially been subsidised or been at a lower rate whilst we've made improvements to the car park at 8 Balmoral Avenue. What I'd be recommending, and this comes with the endorsement of Mr Bosman, who I spoke to late last week on this matter, is that we do a 6-month and a 12-month review, including an analysis of car parking usage with regards to the impact of the particular numbers. That's all I can make recommendations for at the moment with regards to the figures in the draft budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Are there any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
I just want to record an abstention, Mayor.
Okay, abstained by Councillor Dark. So as there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.1.3, Proposed Long-Term Financial Plan 2023 to 24 to 2032-33, moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded. Do I have a seconder, please, councillors? Seconded by Councillor O'Reilly. Thank you. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Just record a further abstention on this item as well.
Yep, so abstained by Councillor Dark. Is there any opposition? No. As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Yes, Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just again want to congratulate the council and the councillors for coming to a responsible budget, which in troubled times is a good thing. The council's in good financial shape, but I also want to remind people that this is a proposed budget, and both this, the long term, and the budget now go out for a 28-day exhibition where people can have input and will not be adopted until after that consultation process.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item 4.2, Policy and Strategy. 4.2.1, Review of Council Policies, Child Safety and Wellbeing Policy. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, just a question to the relevant officer, given the change to the policy with the state government legislation. Could we just get, I suppose, a brief understanding of what the changes are between the two acts and the new policy, and then what the bigger changes are regarding, I suppose, the reporting of any adult over now the age 18.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Dark. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that tonight, but I will take it on notice and confer with the Manager of People, Culture and Innovation to get back to you.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Are there any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.2.2, Growing Nature Together, Greater Dandenong's Biodiversity Action Plan 2023 to 2025, moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to congratulate the staff for the incredible amount of work that they put into this biodiversity plan, and also to the residents in the City of Greater Dandenong who participated so earnestly in the consultation that supported this. Madam Mayor, the clearing of the City of Greater Dandenong since the 1850s has resulted in very little native vegetation remaining. However, we have over 600 hectares of native vegetation in the area, which provide habitat for important many species. The City of Greater Dandenong has declared a climate and ecological emergency and wants to protect and enhance local biodiversity through the Biodiversity Action Plan. The plan is aligned with the Department of Environment, Water and Land Use Planning Strategy, Biodiversity 2037, and Council Sustainability Strategy, and was developed through comprehensive community consultation, including a knowledge review mapping of fauna corridors and on-ground habitat assessments. This plan will go a long way to protecting our precious environment, and once again I congratulate all those involved.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item 4.3 Other. 4.3.1 Draft Minutes of Disability Advisory Committee Meeting 20th of February 2023. Moved by Councillor Long, seconded by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.3.2 Draft Minutes of Arts Advisory Board Meeting 28th of February 2023. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.3.3 Draft Minutes of Community Safety Advisory Committee Meeting 8th of February 2023.
Move. But a second.
Moved by Councillor Long, seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.3.4 Reports on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings.
Happy to move that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, seconded by Councillor Mehmeti. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.3.5 List of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Trung, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 5, Notices of Motion. Item 5.1, Notice of Motion number 27, Rescission Motion in relation to PLA 22/0088. Moved by Councillor Mehmeti.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some questions to the officer regarding the recommendation that has been passed by this council that is the subject of this rescission motion. Now, the first question is, what is the maximum level of noise that can be emitted from this venue under the permit?
Mr. Stewart, please. Oh, sorry, Mr. Stewart. Councillor Lim has declared a conflict of interest.
According with Section 130, 131, the Local Government Act 2020, I declare that I have conflict of interest in the following matter about the motion on number 27 rescission motion. I have a direct material conflict of interest of non-pecuniary nature. I'm the owner of a shop in Balmoral Avenue, Springvale. Thanks. I would like to leave the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. We'll wait until you leave the chambers and we'll continue. Mr. Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in regards to noise levels that can emanate from the site, it's all contained within the acoustic report and it depends on which room, including the function room, that the noise source is actually emitting from. In the acoustic report, it talks about an allowable level that you can go above background noise, which is just ordinary background noise in a street, and that's how it's controlled. They also relate to permit conditions on there in relation to it, but it does rely on the operator being in accordance with their acoustic report and also making sure that their audible levels from each room are set at a particular target and don't increase in that, because that then would have an effect on the surrounding amenity of the area.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been characterised as a karaoke venue, but does this permit also allow for a dance floor and a bar?
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Mr Stewart.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Good question, Councillor O'Reilly. It actually has 4 function rooms, so there are 4 rooms where you can actually go into a private booth. Then it has a larger area, which is the main function area. It has couches, a stage and potentially a dance floor, with also a bar. So looking at the increase in patron numbers from 110 to 175, a large number of those people would be contained within that central function space, which has the stage.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Councillor O'Reilly, do you have any further questions?
Thank you, Mayor. And so on this permit, what conditions mitigate exit noise in particular?
Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. There's conditions on the permit, if one is granted, in regards to patron management plans, alcohol management plans and standing conditions relating to state noise emissions from the site. With the patron management plan, there are measures that have to be put on site, including security, the manager of the venue notifying people when they're leaving the site to be quiet, also signs placed internally. So there's quite extensive conditions that have to go in there that the operator will have to adhere to protect the amenity of the area.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Councillor O'Reilly.
Final question, thank you, Mayor. And to your knowledge, is there any other similar operation in this municipality in the proximity of residences that is allowed to operate until 4 a.m?
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I actually have looked at all of our activity centres. There isn't one that's open till 4 a.m. that is a karaoke bar. It's actually our only karaoke bar. It's a bit more than just a karaoke bar. It actually, as you were previously asking, it does have that bar and stage section. There are a number of shisha lounges with liquor licences in central Dandenong. They generally open till 2 a.m. That's the latest opening time that they have. And then looking at Springvale, a number of the other venues are only open till 1 a.m. If this one was allowed to open till a later time, then potentially they'd also want to open to a later time. But yeah, I can confirm 4 a.m. would be the latest one.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Are there any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? Yes, opposed by Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Mehmeti, as the mover, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we discussed this item thoroughly a fortnight ago, I still believe that it's an activity centre and we're encouraging businesses to open late. This applicant who has written to us, and every councillor has got that email from that applicant, and I see one item that is actually touches me, and it says here, however, during our consultants' meeting with planning officers, they had requested that we apply again for further hours at a later date. They have also said that they want nighttime activity to be extended incrementally. Where does that say in our policy, Madam Mayor? There is nothing in our policy that says that you need to apply like that. So what we are actually doing is making policy on the run. This is something that I don't like at all. We should have a policy where there's guidelines and where these applicants can follow those guidelines and then put in an application. As we know, we actually went out to the police. There was no objection from the police. We went out to the people who live across the road and actually sent them a letter notifying them of this application. None of them have responded. We have had no response to our council of any complaints. This business has been doing it tough. He says quite clearly that by not being able to trade later, this will affect his business. As we know, in these times, it's difficult. And as a council, we want our activity centres to open. I've been around this table for many, many years, and I've heard our council officers say they want Dandenong and Springvale to be actually actively open 24 hours a day. So we're encouraging businesses, but when it comes to somebody applying, we put up barriers. And this is something I'm against, Madam Mayor, so that's why I put in this rescission motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. Councillor Dark, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just wish to echo the sentiment of Councillor Mehmeti. with what he's saying regarding this town planning permit. I've been on council for a little while now, and it's come up consistently that we do want to promote our activity centres. We do want them to become a hub, because when people are around and the site is activated, we have a lot less issues of crime, we have a lot less issues of areas of killing where there's issues within the area affecting the behaviour of the local amenity. Acoustic panelling reports have been conducted. None of the residents have complained. They've been contacted plenty of times. And further to that, the conditions which are put in this town planning permit, in my opinion, are excessive. And if the applicant is happy to look at those, I think that there's merit to look at that. The ideas on page 592 under item 4 that an application will be made to VCAT to cancel the permit if the operator, manager or patrons are found guilty of committing any of the following offences, being that they basically breached the liquor licensing, the alcohol management plan they've got in place. We will immediately make an application to VCAT to cancel their permit. Now, I don't think in any town planning application I've seen has these sort of onerous restrictions put in place. So the council has moved to ensure that we can contain what is there to try and curb potential issues that are going to occur. Not that they would occur, as I said previously, within a karaoke bar within Central Springvale. But I think that we are at a point where we need to be reasonable about what is and what isn't a sensible town planning application in an activity centre zone. And a karaoke bar operating as a small business is something that this council should be getting behind, and that's why I've seconded this motion, and I would implore my colleagues to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Riley, as opposition, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, it's important to note that this council has already passed a resolution at the last council meeting that gives this applicant an increase of patrons from 110 to 175, which is around about a 50% increase in patrons, and we've already resolved to increase hours to 2 a.m. Mayor, what I am concerned about is that granted this is an activity centre, Springvale Activity Centre, but we all should be aware that there are residences right across the road. And this council has resolved in the past, as part of the number 8 Balmoral Avenue complex, to include residences there. So what I'm asking councillors to do when they're considering this rescission motion is that we need to make decisions that balance out the interests of the applicant as well as residents that already live there. And I note that it's been mentioned that there wasn't any formal objection to the application, Mayor, but that is not unusual. And so I don't just represent residents that make formal objections. I think residents expect us to make balanced decisions for them. They may not have the time or inclination to object, but they expect their interests to be considered in the deciding of these permits. So the resolution that Council made at the last meeting does give the applicant most of what they want, does not give them all of what they want. It balances the interests of those residents across the road, and if all goes well, then the applicant can, and as the activity centre nighttime activity grows in harmony, then the applicant can, down the line, apply for an extension of hours. But it would be silly, as has been mentioned, that this would be the only application, the only premises of this type in Greater Dandenong till 4 a.m. on its own, with all the potential issues that come from that, particularly for those residents, as I've mentioned. So I think we've already made a decision at the last council meeting. Mayor, I don't see any great need to change that decision, and I'm sure that if we don't change that decision, then the residents that live opposite this venue can at least have some peace of mind that they will be able to sleep before 4 a.m. on weekends. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Are there any other speakers either for or against? Councillor Garrard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate the issue that Councillor Mehmeti identified, which was around the lack of transparency in the process, that the applicants in good faith have followed the the guideline process that has been published, and they have met that criteria, and yet the council now is turning around to say that they will now apply further barriers that were not, in the guideline process. So I think it's a concerning precedent that the council is deciding when they will add extra barriers that are not open and transparent. I also think it's a concern to hear the officer say that this is the thin edge of the wedge that the other premises will now apply. I don't think he knows that, and what we are voting on today is just this issue and not the whole of the activity centre applying to stay open till 4 a.m. So I think it's an important point. I think it's a matter of process, and I think that as a council we need to be open and transparent, and we need to apply our policy as it is advertised and be consistent in that process.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Are there any other speakers either for or against this item? Councillor Trong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to know how many residents live in number 8 building. Of more.
Mr. Stewart, would you have those numbers?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't know exactly how many residents live in each unit, but there is probably between 8 and 10 that directly face onto it, that wraps around number 8 on the front and then down the side of the building. So I can't confirm exact numbers, but if you look on Google Street View or even now when you're out on site, you can actually see there's probably about 8 or 10 on that interface.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Are there any further speakers either for or against? Right of reply, Councillor Mehmeti.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've heard the argument. The applicant hasn't got everything he wants. It says quite clearly that the council report has proposed to restrict our patron numbers until 9 p.m, after which we would be allowed to have 175 patrons. Whilst not happy with this, it is something we can live and accommodate with. So they're actually trying to work with council. They've been open for quite a while. We've never had anyone object while they've been operating until 1 a.m. By asking for these amendments to their permit, it's because they can't survive on what they're actually operating. If that was quite fine, they would continue with their permit as it was. But they've come to us in good faith, done all the right thing, followed our planning policy guidelines, and we want to put more barriers up. So I urge councillors to support this rescission motion because, and we don't have to worry whether they're the first to 4 a.m, because that's what we've been trying to do for many, many years. We want people to be coming to our activity centres, and it's a good one to try out first because it's not a bar that you would get hundreds and hundreds of young people there and they drink and do whatever they do in these late bars. I probably haven't been for the last 30 odd years, but I'm sure they still do that. This is a karaoke bar. You'll get people from different ages attending, and it's quite a supervised area. It's a private area, and there is one big area, but I think this is a good business, and we need to put some faith into our local businesses.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. So we will now take this item to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Dark, Councillor Mehmeti, Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Trong and Councillor Foster. All those against, Councillor Riley, Councillor Long and Councillor Milkovich. Looks like, let me get my maths right, it is 6-4 to 3. I was trying to do the little squiggles. So the item is
Madam
carried.
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate motion on page 585.
Would you like to speak to your alternate motion?
It's just the changes to 4am.
All right. And is there a seconder for the alternate motion? Seconded by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare the alternate motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we've made a correct decision. We have a policy. We put up this policy for our people who apply for permits to follow, and as they don't get everything they wanted, like I've just read a couple of minutes ago, but we want to work with our businesses. We want to make sure that they are viable. We want to make sure that our activity centres are bringing people in, and as we know, these activity centres will actually have more people moving in the future. So we want to bring people into activity centres instead of having dark and empty streets in our activity centres. So I thank my fellow colleagues for supporting this alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. Can we please call Councillor Lim back in? Item 5.2, Notice of Motion number 28, Aggregated Reporting of Childcare Requirements, moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Long. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Opposition.
Opposed by Councillor Milkovich. Councillor Garrard, as the mover, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to this motion. Madam Mayor, this motion is about fair representation. We know that the more the councillors in this room reflect the community out there, the better the outcomes are for our community. This motion is about attracting a demographic that we do not see currently in council. We do not see carers, child carers, women, particularly in the ages of 18 to 40, nor do we see men who are primary carers of children. We have a gap within representation across the board, and this notice of motion will go some way to addressing that. The summit, the Victorian Leadership Summit, identified through consultation with representatives that childcare was a huge barrier to younger working people entering council, and that's a shame because younger people are actually one of the highest users of council services, and identified that there was a barrier which was childcare, and those that did enter council and used childcare found that they were subject to higher levels of unfavourable media scrutiny because their personal councillor account reflected the childcare subsidies. Therefore, Madam Mayor, this is about a level playing field. This is a pro-younger person, pro-women leadership initiative to take away the barriers that people themselves identified as being a key barrier as to why they did not want to enter a leadership position in council. And it's incredibly important that we do see a younger demographic so that the council is making decisions that encompass the needs of young families. So this initiative, which, as I said, was devised through consultation with that demographic when they identified barriers, this initiative, which is about aggregating child subsidies costs, is about making sure that we take away those barriers to young people being on council. This is not about not being transparent. Those childcare subsidies will absolutely be in annual reports, will absolutely be available for the public to view. This is in no way being not transparent. This is in no way hiding anything. What this is helping younger people, younger parents get onto council where we need them, even though mostly women on council are older women like me, And as fabulous as we are, we do not reflect the needs of young parents, and we need young parents here on council, and we need to help them get here.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Long as the seconder.
I think Councillor Garrard covered it all, so we'll go with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Milkovich as in opposition.
Thank you, Mayor. I rise to oppose this notice of motion for a couple of reasons, and do forgive me if I go a bit of a backwards and forwards, but I remember Councillor Garrard just in a previous notice of motion said that we shouldn't assume anything and we should be open and transparent as a council towards permit applicants, towards karaoke bars, and I would like to say that reading in this motion, I will read it out to everyone who's present and online, that Council advocates to the Minister for Local Government to amendment of the Local Government Planning and Reporting Regulation to enable details of reimbursements of childcare costs or expenses incurred by a councillor who is a carer in a carer relationship to be presented in annual reports as a combined amount for all councillors and not attributed to councillors individually. I've got a question. How does that support transparency? Why would this council advocate a planning minister to actually hide the details, or not hide them, but so much aggregate them so that the cost is not allocated towards the councillor? If it's a legitimate cost the councillor has incurred, whether that's a transportation cost, whether that's an accommodation cost to attend conferences, whether that's a childcare cost, it gets allocated. It comes with the position and it comes with the territory that if you're in the public eye, if you're using public money, you should be accountable and that money should be allocated as your cost. It is in no way a deterrent. It is simply to keep everyone honest, to keep it transparent and to keep it open so the public knows who has used how much of public money. And we know with any position, whether that's a private sector or public sector, there always is and will be one or two rotten apples. And why would we want to try potentially hide anyone behind this potential legislation change when there's an opportunity to present everything on an equal measure and allocate the cost to whoever councillor has occurred, whether that's a male, female, young family, anyone at all. I can't see how advocating to aggregate the cost and wrap them up can help transparency. I'm bedazzled that this is actually proposed in the first place. So this is the reason why I rise to oppose this notice of motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Are there any other speakers either for or against that would like to speak? Councillor Mometti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm all for one, for being transparent and have accountability. We actually have a policy in 2009 which many local governments have copied us because we've done it really, really well. This motion, as I read, it says to advocate to the Minister. So we're not actually changing our policy, we're writing to the Minister to have a look at it as a whole, and then the Minister will make a comment. So this is not touching our policy, which we really fought hard back in 2009 to make sure that we have it, and it's really strong and it's good and it's served us really, really well. So I'm supporting this notice of motion as it says only to advocate to the Minister.
Thank you, Councillor Mometti. Are there any other speakers either for or against? Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I rise to second what Councillor Milkovich touched on as well, and I think that we need to be very, very careful with how we spend ratepayer money. The ratepayers in the city of Greater Dandenong work very, very, very hard to save up, to work. They work very long hours to be able to earn money that then we need to ensure that when they pay their rates, every single dollar that comes into this organisation is spent fairly and efficiently and responsibly. And if it's not, then there needs to be a review and people need to be held account for expenditure that's incurred. There's no question that councillors have, being elected to higher office, have the ability to claim expenses for when you're out of pocket. And if a person is claiming expenses, whether that be kilometrage for driving from home to here or from work to here, or claiming expenses for functions and events, everything is recorded and put into an annual report because this council has a transparency policy. This council is one of the most transparent councils in the state by far, and very rarely do we go in camera, very rarely do we cover up or hide expenses. And what this motion is proposing to do is to have the accumulation of expenses incurred, being childcare expenses in this notice of motion, and putting it under all councillors' names. And basically bearing it, saying, look, it's still going to report it. We're still going to say that a councillor spent almost $10,000 on childcare, for instance, but it's attributed to all councillors, and we will just put an additional sum in saying it's been incurred by a councillor, but we're not going to say who or what. And to me, that's covering up and being very, very, very intransparent of the issues that are at hand. And what is at hand is ensuring that we are spending every single dollar properly. I understand where Councillor Garrett's coming from, and the media, no doubt about it, is very, very strong. They have clear points of view. Whether or not there's a media bias or not, I'm not a person to say. I haven't been on the receiving end of a childcare claiming expenses article. But certainly what the media does do is hold all the councillors to account. If a councillor goes out and racks up $30,000 worth of kilometrage of travel, then they should be responsible, put into the paper. They should be subjected to an article, and they should be then shown to the ratepayers who elected them that they are expensing a significant amount of money on flights, accommodation, functions, you name it. This council has one of the most generous policies for councillors to claim expenses. Every other council that I'm aware of around us limits the amount of money that can be spent on study. They limit the amount of money that can be spent on events and travel. And this council doesn't do that. In this council, you're entitled to undertake the Australian Institute of Company Directors course, which costs over $7,000 for each one, and you're able to undertake whatever training you like as long as it conforms, I suppose, with the Local Government Act. And those things are declared because it's important that residents know where their money is being expensed. And I cannot support a notice of motion to embargo and to push for a policy that then buries and hides ratepayer money from being expensed. And that's why I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Are there any further speakers either for or against? Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've given this some consideration and actually agree with probably almost everything that's been said prior in this debate, in that it is important as far as transparency, and it does keep councillors accountable to know, what expenses they are incurring. And we've got cases reported where the public can make up their own mind, and the sensationalist media will focus on a whole array of expenses, Mayor, and sometimes exaggerate it. But we'd hope that the public sort of is able to judge what's true, what's excessive, and so on. So I think like all sides of this are really not wrong. I'm happy to support this motion because I think there's a seed of an idea there that does warrant further investigation. If it is fairly conclusively proven that the individual reporting of childcare expenses is inhibiting female or male candidates from standing for council, if that can be shown, then I'm willing to think of it further. But in this case, given that it's not a final decision per se, I'm willing to support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Any other further speakers, either for or against? No. I might go back to Councillor Garrard for your right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank Councillor Mehmeti and Councillor O'Reilly for supporting young parents. I thank them for supporting women in the main who are carers of young children mostly. I thank them for supporting a motion that will help young parents become leaders in our community. Young parents are one of the biggest users of our services, maternal and child care, kindergarten services, immunisation services, a whole range of services, and yet they're not here. And with all due respect to Councillor Malkovich and Dark, they're not the demographic that's affected here. They're not the young women that are being accused by media of all manner of things and have undue media focus. They're not the affected. And we need to listen to women. We went out and we spoke to women and we said, what are the barriers? And they told us. And now we're responding. So we need to listen. We need to respond. We need young women here. We need young male parents and carers here as well. So I thank Councillor Mehmeti and I thank Councillor O'Reilly for supporting young parents, for supporting young people into leadership, and I think it reflects well on them.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. We will now take this item to a vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Lim, Councillor Mehmeti, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Formoso, Councillor Long, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Trung, Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor Foster. All those against, please raise your hand. Councillor Milkovich and Councillor Dark. As that is 8 for and 2 against, I declare this item carried. Item 6, reports from councillors, delegated members and councillor questions. I might start on my right. So, Councillor O'Reilly, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've been to quite a number of events, but I won't go through all of them. I'll just go through or talk about the Springvale RSL Anzac service yesterday. I was there with Councillor Lim. It was the first time in 5 years that Springvale RSL had held the Anzac service at the outside the Springvale City Hall. It was a glorious day, glorious morning. The Springvale RSL during the service congratulated this council on the work and the whole refurbishment and rejuvenation of Springvale Community Hub and surround. So it was great to see our Springvale Anzac service back out in the public, outside Springvale City Hall, and that's all I have to report on this meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Trung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Mayor, sorry.
You
know, because I'm very busy with the distribution about the masks, face masks, and also red tag kits. Like you know that I've many report before. I provide them the face mask, closed mask face mask since 2019 to until now. You know, but you know, earlier this year we got a lot of the face mask from Health Department through the SEMVEC. And we provide about the first 3 months of this year, we provide over 78,000 red test kits and also some face masks from Health Department. Last month, the Health Department gave us about over 41,000 red test kits and also some face masks. I and another man will took the red test kits and face mask to provide the business and also like a medical practice and also pharmacies like a Lim pharmacy and many to them. And we provide 41,000 test kits and face mask as well. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say Eid Mubarak to those who celebrated the Eid al-Fitr in the last few days, and to all of those organisations that invited all of us to iftar dinners, including Wellsprings for Women and the Trade Institute of Victoria here in Dandenong. I also want to acknowledge that it's Anzac Day tomorrow, Anzac Day which now commemorates all Australians and New Zealanders who served and died in wars, conflicts and peacemaking operations. A number of us attended the Noble Park commemoration yesterday and will attend many events tomorrow. Madam Mayor, my first question tonight is regarding the Towards Improved Anti-Racism support in Casey and City of Greater Dandenong that yourself launched went to the launch a couple of days ago. I want to recognise first the great work done by officers within this council, in particular Peter Johnson, Marek Knoll and Sarah Fowler, who worked incredibly hard to get that report together. And the results were very concerning. The results showed that 3 out of 5 Participants or their families had experienced racism in the previous 12 months, mainly at work, when shopping or at school. Common forms of racism were microaggressions, insults, unfair treatment and physical threats. Also, 4 out of 5 respondents who experienced racism did not report it because they didn't think it would change anything. And didn't know where to go, had language barriers and didn't trust existing services or had concerns about negative backlash.
Sorry, Councillor Garrard. Can I just ask, please, councillors to a bit of silence? I can't hear Councillor Garrard. Thank you.
My first question, Madam Mayor, is will the Council commit to implementing all 6 of the community-led recommendations in the report? And if so, what funding will support that important work?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for your question and also recognition of this leading work. Recommendation 4 of the report speaks to the need for community-led support services, including the establishment of a local community anti-racism support network. Work is already underway to form this localised community-led network, and Council is certainly participating in that. As is Casey City Council. We'll be seeking feedback from that group in relation to the 6 recommendations. A council report will then be prepared and brought to council to consider any future commitments in relation to these roadmap recommendations and to provide an assessment of funding options available to support implementation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My next question concerns the land the Council purchased back in 2020, the Clow Street, so 86 Clow Street, Dandenong. We're now 3 years later and we still have no concept name, no concept plan, no name, no signage on that. When will the Council complete this work, and will the Council use this opportunity to redress the imbalance in naming public spaces by consulting the local Indigenous community to provide naming options?
Thank you, Ms Garrard. Councillor Garrard. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Garrard, for your questions. The proposed 23-24 budget includes an amount of $250,000 to implement local park furniture and landscape upgrades at this location. Works would be completed in the 23-24 financial year, subject to the budget being adopted with the inclusion of this item in June. Traditionally, we have named similar reserves according to the street they are on. This one would therefore be referred to as Clow Street Reserve. A naming process in accordance with the naming rules for places in Victoria 2022 could be considered, subject to the availability of resources. The naming rules have recently been updated to further support traditional owners' language and the provisions of the Gender Equity Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My next 3 questions relate to the development on the corner of Hutton and Chapel Road in Keysborough South. I'll ask the 3 questions at once and I'm happy for them to be answered at once. What is the total number of dwellings and shops in the new development? What is the anticipated impact on traffic on Chapel Road? And how will traffic be monitored and managed given the expected large increase of traffic volume entering Chapel Road?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Garrard, for your questions. I can confirm that there are 110 dwellings and 13 commercial premises. The application, when submitted, was referred to Council's transport team, who assessed the proposed car parking numbers and design and the anticipated increase in traffic volumes associated with the development. The Transport Department had no objections to the proposed development and identified that the additional traffic volumes could be adequately accommodated for at the signalised intersection of Chapel Road and Hutton Road. Also, Council's Transport Department have confirmed that once the development is completed, regular monitoring and traffic surveys will be undertaken to monitor traffic volumes both at the signalised intersection and Chapel Road.
Thank you, Mr Stewart. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, when will the Stage 3 redevelopment of the Insect Park be completed?
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Garrard, for your question. The Stage 3 upgrade will be completed this financial year.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Short and sweet. Madam Mayor, we've just seen tonight that we've passed the budget which will commence the work on the long-awaited Keysborough Hub, which we have waited for around 8 years. Can we be updated on when works will begin on the Keysborough Hub?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Garrett again. The contractor is expected to take possession of the site once the building permit is issued, which we expect should occur in May, and therefore we're expecting work should commence in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My last two questions are, what is the consultation process in relation to the Keysborough Hub with the local community to have input into the co-design and naming of the playground in the Keysborough Hub? And when will the council be calling for applications for the advisory committee to commence on the Keysborough South Hub?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Ms Gillies, is this? Oh no, this is for you. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, I think there's sort of two parts to this question. So
Sure.
I'll answer the first part from Councillor Garrett. So community consultation for the playground was undertaken in 2021, which informed the final design. Consideration of the naming process for the playground would require further investigation, which can be considered when we develop the strategic plan for the hub with input from the advisory committee. I'll pass over.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Now over to you, Ms Gillies.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks again for your question. Just following on from that, with construction due to commence in June, council officers will soon be commencing the strategic planning process and the community consultation around that. From there, a draft action plan will be developed with the establishment of an advisory committee or equivalent being a key outcome. The draft action plan is due for preparation approximately 6 months prior to the hub's expected practical completion. I therefore anticipate applications will be sought early 2024, and as mentioned, we can include things like naming consultation as part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Councillor Long.
Thank you. These are some of the events that I've attended since my last formal meeting. On the 20th of April, I attended a photo shoot at Benga House for the 150th anniversary of local government. 21st of April, I attended a soccer match between Dandenong City and Kingston City. Dandenong City won 3-0. The 3 goals were scored by Dandenong City in the first 7 minutes. On the 23rd of April, I attended the Anzac Day service at Noble Park RSL. Tomorrow is Anzac Day. Please observe a minute's silence at 11 a.m. for the service people who lost their lives in all the wars and conflicts that Australia has been involved in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Formoso.
I'm up. Thanks, Mayor. It's been a busy couple of weeks, in particular all the incredible iftar dinners that we've all been invited to, so my waistline is really suffering a lot because of them, but I really humbly thank all of the invitations that we received this year, and happy Eid Mubarak to everybody that was celebrating in our community. I also attended the SCL South East Leisure Board meeting for April, which was very productive. Really looking forward to the incredible work that South East Leisure is going to do in our municipality, particularly with the opening of Noble Park Aquatic Centre at the new gym. That's doing really well, so I highly encourage for people to check out the premises and join, because it's one of the best gyms that we've got in the South East by far, and I could quite confidently say all of Victoria. I would also like to mention one of the events that I did attend, which was quite impressive, was the Discover Dandenong Creek Festival at Tahatchuan Park with my fellow colleague, Councillor Bob Milkovich. It was a fantastic day. The sun was shining. I think it was one of the highest amount of residents that we had attend on the day. I don't know what the final number is, so I'm hoping someone will be able to tell me the final numbers. And I'm also wearing a beautiful piece that a Boonwurrung woman, Samantha Bennett, had created. She did the basket weaving on the day. So I purchased this beautiful piece, which is just gorgeous, and obviously using all of our native materials that fall to the ground. So I highly encourage that people check out what Samantha does in our community. And an event that is obviously, I can't believe it's already a year, but the Monash Children's Hospital Walk will be held on Sunday, the May 7th. Those of you that know, obviously, this hospital has done a lot for my family when my son was diagnosed with leukaemia last year. So we will give thanks to this hospital for the rest of our lives, but not only that, but this hospital does service a lot of children within our municipality and in particular the South East. So I'd really encourage for all of the councillors, our residents and everybody that lives in Greater Dandenong in the South East to attend the Monash Children's Hospital Walk, which will be held at Gels Park Sunday, May 7th. And for those that join in early online, if you use the code LUKA, L-U-K-A 2023, as an early bird special, there'll be discounts for entry for those that would like to join the walk. And just to mention that last year we raised over $72,000 for the hospital within 3 weeks. So I'm really hoping that we can match that. So those that can't walk on the day, if they could at least support the hospital and donate some money to Team Lucasade, that would be greatly appreciated, because as I've stressed, we don't know when we're going to need their services, but we are so grateful every day that a hospital like that does exist for our children. I do have a couple of questions, so if the relevant officer could please respond. In regards to merits, there's a couple of merits that I have put into the system that haven't actually been registered. Have we updated this software, and is there, as we said we were going to, is there any updates in terms of how our merit system is progressing? Because there's a lot of merits that I've had to redo simply due to the fact that they haven't been registered. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms Hanson, please.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Formoso, for the question. Merit, which is the current system, is currently going to be replaced by Oracle, which has been communicated to Council previously. We've slightly delayed the rollout of it due to key resources departing. We're still on track, but we're probably a couple of weeks behind. It's due to go live late May. And some of those queries or key points that you've raised will be addressed through the upgrade or through the new system.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Deputy Mayor Formoso, please.
Yep, thanks for that. Really looking forward to that new system being in place, because it's pretty frustrating when I have to go back and redo merits. And another question I have, if the appropriate officer could respond, regarding the ownership of an empty block of land that we have on the corner of Hennessy Way and Bakers Road, Noble Park North, or Dandenong North technically. Do we own that land, and what is the proposal for this empty block of land that's been sitting there for decades? It's an eyesore in the sense that a lot of rubbish is being dumped there, and we could definitely utilise that space. So if I could just get clarification on who owns that, because I've been told that it could be South East Water.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Formoso, for the question. I'll get the details from you and take the question on notice and come back to all councillors as soon as possible.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Deputy Mayor Formoso.
Thank you for that, Ms Roberts. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mometti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll tell you what, following on from the iftar dinners, our waistline has actually grown a bit, but I have been buckling up my suit all night, so it's actually still buckling, so it's all right. I attended many iftar dinners last week. I attended the iftar dinner hosted by Wellsprings for Women, who do a fantastic job in our community. It was great to go and support them. I also attended the Premier's Iftar Dinner. It was the biggest event over the last 8 years. I think 650 people attended. I also attended the Deakin University Iftar Dinner. I also attended the Trade Institute of Victoria Iftar Dinner in Dandenong as well. And then, Madam Mayor, I went to the on Eid prayer at the Dandenong Islamic Society on Friday. I know many people in our community celebrated either Friday or Saturday, and lots of mosques were very, very busy over the weekend. I also attended the Afghan Youth Association of Australia picnic on Sunday. It was great to see families having fun and celebrating the end of Eid, and they also had plenty of food as well. So, oh my God, we've been fed pretty well over the last fortnight. So Eid is over now, so Eid Mubarak to everybody who celebrated, and it's been fantastic. I've gone to Chadstone and there was Ramadan Kareem signs. I went to Dandenong Plaza. So it's really good that our community is celebrating the diversity we have in Australia now. And I only remember maybe 10 years ago, it was pretty bad where we heard horrendous stories of women being grabbed by their hijab and things like that. But you don't see that anymore. Very well accepted now, and people learning, and that's what these iftar dinners are about, learning from each culture. And it's great that many people that I went to those iftar dinners, most of them probably weren't even Muslim. It was people from diverse backgrounds coming to celebrate together and understanding of each another's different faiths. So, we've been doing this really well in Greater Dandenong for a long time. We've had our interfaith network for over 30 years, and that's another thing that we were leaders of in that time. We see many other LGAs following that now, so it's really good. And I feel this is my home, this is our home, and it's great to feel and be and understand each other's cultures. So it was great to celebrate. Madam Mayor, unfortunately, one of the traders in Thomas Street called me this afternoon. She's also sent me a video footage of her windows being smashed and robbed. She told me on that night, I think 3 or 4 of the shops in Thomas Street have been smashed windows, etc. I know a few months ago we had a few CCTV set up on Thomas Street. I'm sure that Victoria Police has been contacted, but I know that we do have a CCTV. Can we look at maybe plotting it back, or maybe use the police one, work in conjunction with Victoria Pol? Can we have a look at that?
Sure. Mr Kearsley, please.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's a shame to hear that. We'll give the local police a call to see. I did notice that it was out about a month ago in Thomas Street, but I'll see whether or not we can get that one back out, or if not, look at whether or not we could relocate the council one there.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. And also, we have members of the community from Kirkham Road. I've raised this instance on many occasions over many years, actually. There's a roundabout on the corner of Bryant's Road and Kirkham Road. This roundabout was actually probably built the wrong way, up to my understanding. I'm not an engineer, and I've always tried to work out why was it so big, and it makes it very difficult for cars to navigate. But what makes it worse is when these big trucks go, they don't fit that section there. I've seen firsthand that the wheels of these trucks actually go on the nature strip. You can quite clearly see big wheels on the nature strip. But what is more concerning, Madam Mayor, is that there's actually an electricity pole there. It's just, I think, 20, 30 centimetres away. That's how close it gets. I've had meetings there with our engineers in the past. They've told me that they've put up signs. They're trying to redirect the traffic, not from Bryant's Road to John Street, and I'm not sure, but the concerns that the residents have raised are real and serious, and I've seen it firsthand. Can we actually again have a look at this roundabout, because the residents are pretty fed up, and I think we need to do something about it. I've actually met with the engineers, with the residents, and nothing really has actually come out of that. That was probably about 6 months ago. So I can understand, and the residents are very furious and upset. I would like us to have a look at it again, because we don't want something to happen, but if something does happen and somebody smashes into a pole, it's too late. We don't want this to happen. Can we please have a look into that, Madam Mayor?
Sure, thank you. Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you. I'll take that one, and I can respond with a statement with regards to the press release that was issued. So it was issued under my name, so it's probably best that I respond. What we are looking at is an infrastructure solution likely to be one that we call vertical displacement, i.e. a raised safety platform on Bryant's Road between Kirkham Road and Podmore Street. What we're hoping is that the vertical displacement is one that is usually very effective at deterring the use of the route by trucks and large commercial vehicles. So confirmation of the treatment and design will be developed in the coming months, and then hopefully we'll be able to go out to consultation with residents in the area. I'm happy again to take this up with the traffic engineers with regards to the roundabout matter that you've raised, but it may well be that the better option is actually looking at vertical displacement in terms of some speed humps. But that's something I'll take partly on notice, and we'll get back to you and the residents.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley, and that was discussed at the meeting, but yes, it still hasn't happened, and that's why the residents are up in arms, I guess. Also, what they've raised with me is also maybe having a speed hump in between Hammond Road and Bryant's Road. I'm not sure exactly where, I'm not an engineer. Some of them have suggested maybe where the crossing is, but it might not be there. If council officers and engineers can actually have a look into that. There's many speed humps as from, if you go the other way down Kirkham Road where Hammond Road is, if you turn right going down on Hammond Road, there's many speed humps there, but this section there, I'm not sure for one reason or not, no speed humps has been installed. There is a crossing there where children cross to go to the school. Maybe that's why we haven't put a speed hump maybe 30, 40, 50 metres down closer to Hammond Road. But I think that's something that we need to look at while we're looking at these intersections on Kirkham Road.
Thank you, Councillor Mamedi.
Yes, that's certainly something we can add to the list. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. On Wednesday, the 12th of April, I had a chance to attend Wellspring for Women Ramadan Iftar. On Friday, the 14th of April, as well, attended Cambodian New Year on that Friday. The main reason I attended that day, probably just would like to thank you, the Cambodian community that support Monash children for the last many years, and also Salvation Army, especially we just formed a new Red Shield Appeal, multicultural Red Shield Appeal, and also plus flower ceremony for Monash children and so many other ceremony for Cambodian community. On the 15th, I had a chance again to attend Cambodian New Year again with many Member of Parliament on that day, plus Mayor Councillor Eden Foster and also Councillor Tan. The idea just would like to explain to my committee about what is shaping Springwell, because they don't understand much. I spent a bit of time to explain to them what our council looking forward to try to improve Springwell. And also have a few distinguished guests like Victorian Multicultural Commissioner, her name is Vivian Nguyen, and also the school principal and deputy school principal, Callisto College as well. And on the Sunday, the 16th of April, I attended with Monash Health Team, come along with to come thank you to Cambodian community again, and also just to inform our community about the next charity dinner, probably around the 21st of May, and plus we inform our community about Walk for Monash Children on the 7th of May, that already Deputy Mayor mentioned about that, and plus the most important is on the 6th of May, we're going to celebrate our first multicultural Red Shield Appeal, and I would like to invite all our councillors to attend that at Box Hill Town Hall. It's a good one on the name of multicultural this time, not just Red Shield Appeal, multicultural Red Shield Appeal that we formed last year. And on the Sunday, the 16th of April, I attended Cambodian New Year. Oh, that's already done that. And on the 18th of April, I had a long discussion with committee member of Bright Moon, again, just regarding to the future of Bright Moon Temple. And at night time, I attend fundraising again for Bright Moon Temple with the mayor and also Councillor Tan. And a very successful one. And Wednesday, the 19th of April, I attended Eid celebration hosted by TIV in Minet Trade Institute of Victoria. On Thursday, the 20th of April, I had a meeting with Salvation Army again, just to discuss about the celebration on the 6th of May, coming up soon on Saturday. And also on Friday, the 21st, on Friday, the 20th of May, I had a chance to tour with the Premier Daniel Andrew, some business owner, and also Mr. Yang Tak, just to try to understand which part of Springwell Activity Center we can revitalize it. And we had a very good outcome from the Premier. And on Saturday, the 22nd of April, attend again, eat festival with Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillor O'Reilly, and some Member of Parliament as well. On Sunday, the 23rd of April, attend an Anzac Day celebration with Councillor O'Reilly, just to lay in the wreath. And after that, they invited me again to go to the RSL at Springwell, just to lay the wreath again with other distinguished guests, especially Mr. Michael Vaughan. He's a director or he's a RSL officer, actually. Yeah, that's about all for my activity the last fortnight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, as I suppose echo the sentiment of all my other colleagues, it's been a very busy couple of weeks with a lot of the events that have been occurring. As most of the councils have touched on, there was quite a lot of iftar dinners. I suppose one of the biggest ones was the Trade Institute of Victoria on Cheltenham Road, who actually had turned out to have a very, very good event with a couple of students who currently go there. As people are, I suppose, changing their midlife careers and moving into building and construction in the way that they specialise in offering courses where instead of doing an apprenticeship over 3 or 4 years, you can actually now fast track that within 12 months by doing an accredited program that they have. It also was Orthodox Easter for our Orthodox community, particularly given we have some of the largest Orthodox churches and communities in the southeast region. And I know well, for a lot of the Serbian communities, Ukrainian, Russian and other Orthodox, it's a very, very, very large event with a lot of family coming over to celebrate. I've got a few questions this evening. My first question, in my ward I have had, there's a lot of town planning applications regarding the knockdown and rebuild of homes, and unfortunately a couple of my residents have been caught up in the Porter Davis debacle. I just want to find out from the relevant officer where things have got up to. I suppose one, if we're aware of how many properties in the city of Greater Dandenong are affected by Porter Davis. Two, and from a town planning perspective, given they have an active town planning application, and from a building surveying perspective of what we're doing in dealing with that at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr. Stewart, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Councillor Dark, for the question. It's definitely a difficult time for those property owners. I can confirm we have 21 properties in our municipality that are affected. In regards to what we're doing, we have contacted each of those landowners to advise them about potential rights and avenues for help, and that they can contact their registered building surveyor to talk through what their further options are going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question is, I received an email from one of my residents dealing with the Foro Court Reserve, which runs between Brett Drive and Chapel Road in Keysborough. There's been some requests about whether there's potentially any improvements we could do. The grass is long in quite a few areas. It backs onto a kindergarten and a childcare centre, and there's no facilities for, I suppose, kids who can actually go through the back gate into that open area for any sort of activation for them. So if we could please have a look at that.
Sure. Mr. Van Boxtel.
Yeah, through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. Yeah, we'll work with the Director of Planning that also looks after the open space to see what's possible there and see if that's one of our programs and update you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question is regarding the Bill Bungaree Kindergarten in my ward. The Bill Bungaree Kindergarten has closed with the opening of the new kindergarten in Kumura Road. The question I've got, I know we've temporarily leased it to Disability Services, but there hasn't been, I suppose, any real conversation about what is the future for this facility and also what is going to happen given that the facility has undergone some recent modifications to the building, about whether it's available, one, to the public community or what exactly we're doing with it.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor. I will have to take that one on notice, though. I haven't got up to speed on that in the last week. I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My question regarding the Wakta Reserve Stage 2 playground. At the Keysborough Big Picnic, it was a topic of conversation amongst the volunteers and residents nearby as well, knowing that Stage 2 of the playground is coming. I just want to get an estimated timeframe of when, I suppose, works are going to begin on the removal of the old playground and when we're expecting completion.
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Dark. My understanding is from the Capital Works report that the works are to commence in May and that the works are scheduled to be ready by June of this year still. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My last question. In the previous term of council, there was an amendment to the policies regarding the awarding of tenders, and tender points were awarded for companies who hired local and purchased local products. Some comments came to me through my daytime job from a couple of building construction firms that they have basically moved into a position where they automatically say, oh, we're going to employ people locally, and then subsequently to that, once being awarded the tender, which could come down to some very small point difference between two tenders, then don't deal with that. My question to the relevant director is, what do we have in terms of random reviews and audits to make sure that, I suppose, one, if we are going out, we're awarding tenders and contracts based upon, I suppose, some critical tender points that they are going to employ local people and buy local, that they actually do that?
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Keasley?
Thank you. I'm happy to answer that in part and then maybe take the rest on notice, and I can refer it to the manager of that particular area, Anthony Camillo. My understanding and information I have is that there are some audits that are done with regards to ensuring that contractors live up to the standards and also the expectations of what's issued. When it comes to particular staffing matters, that's something I can, again, take on notice and refer that to the manager for a response.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Dark? No? Okay. Councillor Milkovich, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the rest of my fellow councillors, I attended a number of events. The most important one and the holiest one of the whole lot was on the 16th of April for the Orthodox Easter, celebrated with my community in the local church. It was great to catch up with some people that I haven't seen for quite a while, and this holiday really does bring the best in all of us and celebrates the resurrection of Jesus Christ, so it was great to, like I said, celebrate that particular date. The next event that I'll touch on, which was also very, very well sort of highlighted, was also the one that Councillor Lana Formosa mentioned, which was Discover Dandenong Creek Festival, which is in my ward, one of the rare few events that we do have up in the north part of Dandenong municipality. It's a great event. I was there last year and the weather was a bit iffy. We were sort of, running around trying to hide from the rain. This year, the weather guards have looked down on us and said, we're going to give you some sunshine, and it was fantastic. It was coupled with the rearrangement of the stalls and made it a lot easier for people with disability on either wheelchairs or walking frames to actually get to stalls and get to talk to people and get to talk to council officers. That was also highlighted by the new jetty that council has delivered finally. It was a bit of a delay, but we got there at the end and kids were ecstatic, and the ducks were there, and it was just a fantastic atmosphere. Like I said, one of the rare events that I have in my ward, but very well visited. Fantastic turnout, and I hope that we can only move to bigger and better things next year. A couple of questions that I have for relevant officers. First one is, about 4 years ago, or just over 4 years ago, council purchased 275 Lonsdale Street, which is named Vanity Lane project, and it's been sitting idle with some work being done and some work still being boarded up ever since. Is there any movement on this particular project, any timeline, any sort of idea when it might be restarted, resurrected and actually finished? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Milkovich. There's been significant delays with that project, unfortunately, to do with the necessary approvals that we need to secure from the abutting property owners. So part of the project scope is to demolish the building that was fire damaged, but the building shares party walls with adjacent properties, a chemist on one side and a private retail premises on the other. So it's quite a complex operation to demolish the structure without affecting the foundations of the abutting properties, and we have to go through a process in accordance with the building regulations to notify those owners, and we have to provide certain information in respect to the process that council will follow. That's taken us much longer than anticipated. We believe we now have all the required information, and my understanding is those notices are about to be issued again on the abutting property owners that ideally then should allow for the demolition to commence. But also, because the project's been delayed, we do need to go through a further procurement process in terms of the cost and the appointment of an appropriate demolition company. So once the notices are appropriately served and the demolition contract is appointed, we expect demolition will take place, but it will be a few more months yet before that happens.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Thank you, Mayor. Just a follow-up question, supplementary. Is there a possibility that the abutting owners of the properties can actually stop this process altogether? Like, is there a chance that we cannot proceed with this work? And if so, where does that actually leave council with half demolished, half sort of fenced off building site in the middle of Dandenong.
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you again, Councillor Milkovich. I don't believe so, that it's a case that we won't be able to proceed. It's just that some of the remediation work that may be required to support the foundations of the abutting structure may be more complicated than we anticipated, and therefore may take more time and more costs to secure. But we're getting advice from an independent engineer in regards to that currently, and we've just received a report that we believe will allow us to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. That's fantastic to hear. Let's hope that this work can move on in a sort of timely manner, because it has been sitting there, like I said, for the past 4 years or so, and it is a bit of an eyesore. And I think it'll provide a vital link between Thomas Street and Lonsdale Street, just enhancing further the appeal of a centre of Dandenong. So that's great to see. My next question is, could we please have a relevant officer or managers or council workers inspect the quality and levels of the footpath, particularly on the north side of Lonsdale Street from Langhorne Street just about to Clark Street? I use that sort of footpath every day going to work, and there's been a number of work orders carried out by contractors. I'm not sure if it's Telstra, Telecommunication, Water Authority, whatever, where they've lifted up the pavers, they've patched it up with bitumen, it's uneven, it's just really all over the place. And not only that, you've got pavers stacked in front of 254 Lonsdale Street, like about waist high, just fenced off with a little bit of a tape. It is actually a bit of a danger if the kid comes along and pushes one of those onto the cars or whatever. So could we have someone maybe just inspect and see what sort of rectification work can be done to make sure the footpath is level and those pavers are not wobbly where people are sort of tripping over and causing a fall hazard? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Milkovich. We'll arrange an inspection of that location. It is normal practice that the entity who undertakes those works is responsible for reinstatement. Unfortunately, on many occasions, people undertake illegal works and therefore don't necessarily complete that reinstatement. But we'll undertake an appropriate inspection and we'll see if we can get that area rectified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. And if I may offer, if the council officers do come along, whether it's yourself or someone else, I'd be happy to go for a quick walk and don't mind giving me a buzz anytime. My next question was from a couple of residents concerning the traffic treatments on Outlook Drive between Thames Street and Brady Road, really, where there was a signage or there was a mobile sign posted that traffic treatments are being considered by the council. I think it's regarding the traffic calming devices, speed humps, islands, whatever you want to call them. Can I please find out what has been done in regards to consulting with the neighbouring residents, if anything at all, or what the plan of action really is to make sure that everyone's got the right information in regards to what has been proposed, that everyone's sort of comfortable with the solutions that we're offering to residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Milkovich. I'll have to follow that up with the relevant officers to get those details to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. My last question for tonight is, again, quite a few residents, some of them which I've caught up with at the Discover Dandenong Creek Festival, are very, very concerned, as much as Councillor Angela Long knows as well, regarding the cars speeding past Brady Road shops. It is a known problem, and I think what had happened quite a few years ago, there was a child almost killed up. Forgive me if I've sort of misrepresented, but and that resulted in installation of the flashing lights. However, as of lately, the cars are really flying past and no one's paying much attention, and residents are asking if we can please have, I know it's out of the hands of the council, speed reduction to 40 kilometres an hour, some distance away from the shops. So just to make it a little bit safer, and look, I actually visit those shops on a regular basis, and my family does too, and really is, a vast majority of residents are law-abiding, drive on the speed limit. On the other hand, you've got a couple of lunatics, I've got to say, that are absolutely complete disregard for anyone's safety for that matter, including their own, and they just whiz past the shops. Now, the flashing lights are there. Can we please advocate again to the state government, VicRoads or whoever the responsible authorities, to see if we can get the speed limit reduced and possibly a pedestrian crossing, raised pedestrian crossing installed just to either side of the shops or where the current one is, just to slow them down. And in the meantime, I've had I guess a reasonable suggestion and question from one of the residents, because the pedestrian crossings have sort of, the colour's gone, the white stripes, the zebra crossing. Can we please, in the meantime, just look at maybe possibly just refreshing it with some sort of line markings there, just to emphasise that there is a crossing to those who haven't noticed it as yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Milkovich. I think I do recall that you've raised previously the issue of speeding at that location, and I think we've had assessments done in the past, and we have advocated, I think, to Vic Roads to try and get approval to reduce the speed limit, but to date that's been unsuccessful. So I'll liaise with our Transport Department to pursue that again and see what's possible in terms of advocacy. In respect to the zebra crossing, we'll have a look at that and see if there's maintenance work required in terms of the condition of the painted surface. And I'll also liaise with the transport team regarding the question of can we install raised pavements on the approaches to the crossing either side of the shopping strip. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. So in the past couple of weeks, I too have been to many iftar dinners. Attended with my fellow councillors the iftar dinner hosted by Wellsprings for Women. Again, another wonderful event that Wellsprings for Women have hosted. They're quite great at hosting wonderful events. And I attended. Actually, backtrack. I actually had a student from Calesta College who was doing work experience in the first week of the school holidays, and I spent Friday with this student going around Dandenong itself and showcasing our wonderful city and going through the market, having a tour, popped into and saw Councillor Mehmedi, that had a wonderful experience with this particular student. And I encourage any students that are watching this, I'm probably not, but if they are, encourage them to make inquiries about how they can do work experience at the City of Greater Dandenong and work alongside the Mayor of the day, perhaps. I also attended the Cambodian New Year celebration hosted by the Cambodian Buddhist Association of Victoria with Councillor Lim and Councillor Tan, and they're celebrating the Year of the Rabbit, so I'd like to wish our Cambodian community a Happy New Year. I also attended, again with Councillor Lim and Councillor Tan, the Bright Moon Buddhist Temple fundraising event, and I encourage anyone to perhaps dig deep and give some money to the temple as they do recover from their devastating fire back in February. This will be a long process, but I know that the Buddhist community in Springvale and in Greater Dandenong and the southeast will bounce back. They're resilient and they will certainly bounce back from this, but I think they need a little bit of help from all of us. And with my fellow councillors, also attended an iftar dinner with the Trade Institute of Victoria. I know that was mentioned. Quite a few of us had attended that, and it was great to see the work that TIV do in Dandenong, and the students as well that benefit from TIV being in Dandenong. I couldn't attend the Discovery Dandenong Creek Festival as I was at the launch of the anti-racism report with Councillor Garrard. The study was conducted by Victoria University in partnership with the City of Greater Dandenong and City of Casey, with the aim of discovering how racism can be combated. It's unfortunate to hear that basically 3 out of 5 respondents and their families experience racism in the past 12 months. It's a shame that this is still continuing, and it's a very much needed report, but it highlights, it gives great insights and highlights what we need to do as a community with its 6 recommendations. So I encourage my fellow councillors to read the report, encourage the community to read the report, and I'd like to table the report today. Thank you. I also attended a photo shoot with some of my fellow councillors at Heritage Hill, which was in honour to celebrate Dandenong 150 years of local government. And the exhibition that is on at Heritage Hill is running until the end of May. So I strongly encourage our our residents to pop in there and have a look. It is quite fantastic to see our history, something that we should all be very proud of. 150 years is a long time, and I think it's something that us residents of the City of Greater Dandenong should be really proud of and explore the display there. Another Eid festival I attended with, again, fellow councillors, hosted by the United Melbourne Muslim Alliance. Again, I'd like to wish those residents who are celebrating a happy Eid Mubarak. And just yesterday I attended, again with my fellow councillors, Noble Park RSL Anzac Day Sunday commemoration march and service. And as tomorrow is Anzac Day, I do strongly encourage our residents to get down to a service. I know that Dandenong RSL is having the dawn service, but also the march through Palm Plaza as well later in the morning. And I might add, lest we forget. Well, that's it from me. We'll move on to item 7. Is there any urgent business, councillors? As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed at 9:07 p.m. and thank you all very much and good evening.